Hi, this is Mama Shan, and I'm going to show you how to do some basic correction on an image that you've saved to your hard drive right out of your camera if it needs some correction. So the first thing we're going to do is use a levels adjustment layer, or you can use curves. I'm going to pull up levels to show you what we're going to set up here. These three little eyedroppers, we're going to set the target values for these. We could also set them up using curves as well. Just go in here and choose the eyedroppers. But I'm going to do levels for those of you that have Photoshop Elements. And so I'm going to click on the levels adjustment layer again. Just select that from that icon at the bottom of the layers palette. And in order to set the black point for your image, to set the target value, this isn't going to change the image at all. This black eyedropper on the left, just hover over it and double click on it, and that's going to open up the color picker. Now this isn't the regular color picker that you get from over in the toolbox. Notice that it says color picker, select target shadow color. So this is to select your target shadow color. Now by default, Photoshop is going to have these set all to 0 so that your darkest point in your image is going to be that pure black or 0 level. Now for printing, what we want to do is set that brightness level to 5%. So just swipe in the B field, that's the easiest way to do it, and type in 5. And notice that ups the levels value for the red, green, and blue channels to 13. This will prevent plugging up of the shadows when you go to print your image. So we're setting this target value to determine that low end of the range. So I'm going to click OK. Doesn't change the image yet. And now we're going to set the white point. So we double click on the white eyedropper, and that opens up the target highlight color picker. And what we're going to do in here is play around with this B field. Now depending on your default color settings, your numbers may be a little bit different. So I'm going to start out typing in 95%, which changes my RGB fields to 242, and that would be fine if there was a 3% dot in the magenta area. That's what we're looking for, is to get a 3% in here, and since it says 2, I'm going to lower this down to 94. Because in the highlight areas, you need at least, so it doesn't blow out in print, you need at least a 3% dot when you are commercially printing something. So I've got 94 in my brightness field, I've got my 3% dot in the magenta and yellow area, and that gives us neutral equal values in the red, green, and blue channel of 240 levels. Remember, each channel has 256 levels, starting from 0 on up to 255. So we brought that down a little so that we won't have any highlights that are blown out to paper white. So click OK. So now we've set our target values here. The middle slider is the gamma slider, and that's, you won't have to change. That's normally set at 50% with 128 levels in all three channels, which is the halfway mark between 0 and 255, and that one's okay. So once we've set our target values, what we need to do is determine what is the very darkest part in this image right now and what is the very brightest part in this image right now. And I'm just going to click OK and leave a null levels adjustment layer here right now, because what we're going to do is something a little bit different here. And then it's going to say save new target colors as default. I'm going to click yes. You can change those back later if you want, if you're doing output for web, but for right now I'm just going to save those target values. And what I'm going to do is, actually, let me just throw this levels away. So long as I've set the target colors, it's okay. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is actually make sure that my eyedropper is set to 5x5 average. This is a high-res image. Just go here to image size to show you. It's 34 megabyte file, so it's very high res. So I'm using a 5x5 average for my eyedropper. You can use a 3x3 average, These are for high-res digital camera images. Just don't use point sample. So with my eyedropper set to that, I'm going to determine where it are the darkest and brightest areas. Now you can eyeball that and say, okay, this looks like it's pretty dark and this looks like it's the brightest part of the image, but if you want to know for sure, the way to do it is to temporarily add a threshold adjustment layer. So I'm just going to select threshold from the add fill or adjustment icon at the bottom of the layers palette. It turns the image to just black and white pixels, and I'm going to take the slider in the threshold level box and move it all the way to the left, and then just start slowly bringing it into the right until I get a good solid area of black. This is the darkest area of the image. That's what that's telling you. And what I can do is put down a sample point as a target that I can use later in levels when I'm doing the correction. So I know this is the darkest area. To set down a target point or sample point, just move your cursor into the document window, hold down your Shift key, and that gives you this other little icon at the top of your eyedropper, but allows you to add the sample point to the pixel area. It has a number 1 there. And then we're just going to slide this over to the right and start bringing it into where this image, the histogram, has some information. Start sliding it in towards there, and now we're looking for where the solid white areas first come in. So that's right about here. So I'm going to hold down my Shift key and click, and that adds a sample point number 2 in that white area. Now we don't need the threshold adjustment layer to remain in the layers palette at all. We were just temporarily using this to show us where our natural black and white points are of the image. So just cancel out of here once you have laid down those sample target points. And let me click on the Move tool just to show you. Notice how they disappeared. Those sample points, if yours have disappeared for some reason, all you have to do to get them to come back is simply select the regular eyedropper tool and they'll be visible, because you're going to need them for the next part.